just for the people who don't know us, at Atato, we call ourselves a blockchain service provider. It means that we develop blockchain platform for businesses. And we have done so with our partners. Some of you guys might know the names that are on this slide. Mostly ConsenSys, the biggest blockchain company in the world. And we are their partner here for Thailand. And we use their software to deliver the platform to our clients today. Kaleido, you can see them as, but for blockchain. They have been part of our meetup actually during those 2 sessions ago, and working with several clients in Thailand today. And Hyperledger Besu, and we build most of our platform on Ethereum, and we try to bring more companies building on Ethereum on those meetups. And at Atato, we are a young company, but we have been here since 2017, and our office is in center Bangkok. And I'm French, but most of our team, 90% is Thai. Some of them are here. And we have been building platform in different fields, in the finance industry, with the launch of the ICO portal last year. We did some work with in energy, and also in traceability. Some of the clients that you see here, we have been working with them in different fields. But at Atato, actually, we are really trying to promote and to show that blockchain is bringing a return on investment to the businesses that implement blockchain. I think we are past the time where blockchain was just an experiment. Today, it's bringing a lot of return for the businesses that are using the technology. And yeah, that's all our team. They are here. This is our expertise. I mean, blockchain, smart contracts. But just very quickly, we have our own products, and we have been doing that since 2018. We have a food traceability app, which is used in Europe, and for some customers as well in Asia. It was our first project live since 2018, and yeah, it was used by companies here in Thailand, publicly listed companies here in Thailand. And we also have our software development kit. This is what we reuse to every platforms that we are working on, and in production since more than 1.5 years now. And this is what we are actually enables us to build more platforms and to scale our business. So this is us at Atato, and we are the organizer of this meetup. And thank you guys for joining tonight. I just trying to get some news if we get Robert, but I will let Teresa present Block's paper quickly, since you answer.
Okay. So so hi guys, everyone. I'm Teresa Huang. I am. Can you guys hear me now? I think okay, great. I'm a Taiwanese now living in Bangkok. I actually co-founded Block's paper with some of my friends in 2019, and Block's paper is and our mission and vision is to become a blockchain media platform and gateway in Southeast Asia, and trying to eliminate the information gap and put the blockchain educational content in the local language and in a structured way. So actually, we are focused. We have focused on Ethereum related topics since 3 years ago. Then we co-host. We host a Ethereum meetup in this early, I think, last year. And thanks Atato team for arranging this event and putting everything together on one time a month. I mean, like, we are really happy to co-host with you guys and glad to be here. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Teresa. And yeah, sorry again for the delay that we are experiencing today. First time it happened to us. But I think with since we are doing those online and with speakers in the US, sometimes the time might be a bit early for them. But give us 5 minutes. We are still trying to call him and see if he can join us.
Sure. I will ask him a question once he dials in. I will ask him, what is when he wake up in the morning, what makes him excited to work on the stuff? I mean, like, just a welcome question once he dials in. Yeah.
So yeah, sorry guys, while we wait for Robert to join us. Yeah, maybe just it's Guillaume here from Atato, and I just wanted to take a few minutes to try to recap a bit why Ethereum 2 in the meantime. So as you know, Ethereum is something that started as a project, let's say in 2014, that first went live in 2015. And some can say that it was one of the first blockchains to actually implement smart contracts in the way that gave rise to tokens and the whole DeFi ecosystem that we see today. I think back in 2015, nobody really could have predicted how the Ethereum network would be used today. And so we are in a situation today where there are several limitations on the public Ethereum network. So the one that people use for DeFi and companies like Kula are building on, for example, today. And even the one that has been used by some projects, for example, in CBDC in Europe recently. And in particular, those issues are around what we call scalability. So really how to make the network bigger, more active, with more transactions and more people using it. And it's a problem that has been recognized early on in the days of Ethereum. Basically, since the inception, people have recognized that there would be a limit to the number of transactions that the network could process. And while it's still an amazing achievement, Ethereum itself and the system that's live and up and running for 5 years without interruption, there are still challenges that were, until recently, theoretical challenges. So you had actually computer scientists and researchers like Robert, who were working on resolving deep tech problems related to scaling the network. And the good news is that it's a problem that has been solved on the theoretical side since last year, basically, the scaling of the Ethereum chain. There are different concepts on how this problem is resolved that Robert will be able to explain much better than me. But what they achieve is a greater scale, a greater number of transactions that the Ethereum network can process. First, there are also several achievements related to security, several improvements related to security of the network. And so what this means is that now the Ethereum team has built this clear design on how the Ethereum version 2 is going to operate. And what we'll hear from today from Robert, I'm sure he'll be able to join us, sorry for the delay. What we'll hear from him is what's going to happen from now until we get to this Ethereum version 2. How are we going to get there? What will be the different phases and steps to get to the next version? And also, how is it built? And what's the technology behind it? So one thing to keep in mind is that this scalability improvements that will come, they relate to the Ethereum public network. So, you know, there are some other ways to use a blockchain, something that we call a private blockchain. So it's like your own chain where you control access, who goes in and out, who gets to use your blockchain. In those private blockchain scenario, we have much better control over the throughput, the speed of our blockchain. And so in most use cases, the performance that we see on private Ethereum network is really comparable to Corda, Fabric, and other enterprise blockchain platforms. And then the main network, the public network, of course, is something that just doesn't exist with competition products like Corda or Fabric. It's an amazing achievement that it is there. And in the version 2, it's going to be massively improved. And I think we have some news from Robert.
Yeah, I tried to reach him on the phone, and it's 6 o'clock in the morning where he lives. And sorry for guys, I really apologize for that. I'm trying to reach him, but let's see if he's. Let's wait 5 minutes and then we'll see. And hopefully he can make it. I just try to send him a message and try to call him, and yeah, maybe it was a bit early for a West Coast resident. we had last month, we had the people from actually MetaMask, who were based as well, some of them in California, and yeah, it was. Sorry again for that, for the delay of tonight. So guys, since Robert doesn't pick up, we're just going to recap Ethereum 2.0 quickly in 5 to 10 minutes. And just to give you an overview, we were not planning to make the presentation ourselves, but we'll do it. We apologize again. Now it's not too late. We already apologize for the delay, and our actually Robert, who was supposed to join us, something like that, he is not here today. So yeah, Guillaume is going to show you a short presentation on the phase of phase 2.
Right. So disclaimer: I don't pretend to be a Ethereum version 2 expert. So I'm just trying to do my best to give an overview of people who've taken the time to attend today on what is Ethereum 2, when is it going to come. Sorry, we don't have a very good material, but very briefly, Ethereum 2 is the new version of Ethereum, which is going to solve scalability problem and have a lot of other improvements. Practically, you might have heard, oh, Ethereum 2 is coming in 2020, it's coming soon, and then there's going to be proof of stake. So this is what people refer to as Ethereum 2 phase 0. You might have heard the term beacon chain. And so the beacon chain is really one of the core features of Ethereum 2, which is going to allow the network to move to proof of stake. So what is proof of stake? So basically, it's a different way to secure a blockchain from the way that Bitcoin and Ethereum have operated so far, which is called proof of work. Proof of work is a great innovation that has allowed networks like Bitcoin to emerge. It has a lot of inefficiencies, in particular power consumption. And there are some other inefficiencies that are related to the blockchain itself. Now, proof of stake, then, it's a way basically to secure your blockchain without this heavy consumption of energy. And proof of stake is something that is done by basically doing some kind of virtual mining. So in proof of work, you have miners that secure the network, and in proof of stake, you have kind of a virtual mining where you stake funds and you get rewards if you secure the network well, and you get penalties if you don't secure the network well. So what's going to happen in this year is that the Ethereum network will move from proof of work to proof of stake. And that's going to be the main change of the phase 0 that is described here on this screen. There are some other changes that are going to come with it. But the basic change is this, a change in the way that the network is secured that's going to happen in 2020. And so
just to give you there is almost weekly updates from the development team from the Ethereum foundations. They are still under test. The testing at the moment, it's kind of a running joke in the community where the phase 0 is going to be launched. But as the recent development that we have seen actually last week, it should be in coming weeks. So it's going to be very exciting to be able to see staking and the launch of this very ambitious project.
And so what does this mean practically? This means that if you are someone who holds Ether today, you will be able to do what's called a deposit into this proof of stake network. And then once you deposited funds, if you are securing the network well, which means basically running a piece of software, you're going to start getting some rewards. So you're going to start to be able to stake your Ether, which secures the network. You get a reward. There are some risks involved. There might be bugs. There might be some issues. So it's more really for people who are willing to take those risks and who are knowledgeable on the technology side. Although it's interesting to note that some companies, maybe Coinbase, I think, or some others, are going to start what's called a staking pool, where they do this as a service for you and take a commission.
So normally, you need to have 32 ETH in order to stake. But as Guillaume mentioned, there is companies, there is ConsenSys proposing it, Coinbase, which are going to offer, Binance normally, which are going to offer staking, and you could stack with 0.5 to 1 ETH. And this is the way everybody will be able to stack Ethereum when there will be the launch of phase 0. So of course, there is some risk, but there is some rewards. So you're gonna get some return in ETH by staking, and you will just replace the miners.
Yeah, so it's exciting to see this move, which is going to make the network more efficient from an energy standpoint. There are some other improvements that come along with this with regards to networking and some other improvements of the network, which I'm not qualified enough to comment on, but if people want to learn more, we'll be happy to share the links with them, and hopefully if we get Robert to join, we'll share more. And as Fox mentioned in the chat, one risk that you will be staking when you stake your Ether is that there's no cancel button. You can't just take your Ether back and say, okay, wait, I'm done with this staking, it's too risky. And so that's one more reason to be careful if you're considering this to stake. Again, it's really for people that are knowledgeable on the technology side, and keep in mind, like Fox is saying, there is no cancel button. You can't just unstake or withdraw your Ether that's going to be transferred to the Ethereum 2 chain. But it's exciting, and I'm sure that after a few weeks or months, the system will become stable very quickly. As always, bigger risk, bigger reward, right? So for those willing to take a risk early on in the development, there's probably going to be some rewards there. So that's the phase 0, which is something where the team has a reasonably precise timeline. And then I see a question from Devan. Thanks, guys, by the way, for giving the question and keeping this meetup active today. So the question is, must I stake my Ether to run or not? So the answer then, to my knowledge, would be no. You can run a node without having to stake Ether. Just like today, you can run a node without being a miner. So similarly, you'll be able to run a node without staking, I think. I would love Robert to confirm. And so then with regards to storing keys on your node, like what are the best practices to do this? So yeah, you might, maybe Devan, you were running Geth like a long time ago in the early days, and your wallets were stored on your node. It's not the best practice anymore today, really. What people usually do these days when they want to make transactions is that the transactions are not actually signed on the node. Instead, you send a transaction to it that is already signed. So practically what this means, let's say you use my Ether wallet. If you want to make transactions with my Ether wallet, you can connect to your node and then sign the transaction however you like using my Ether wallet. So let's say you want to use a Trezor, a Ledger, hardware wallet, some external signer or key provider, you can do that. And we are seeing a lot more integration on hardware security modules, HSMs, for all the technologies that are involved in signing Ethereum transactions these days. And most of the enterprise clients that we're working with, such as Pegasus, Hyperledger Besu, and also the Kaleido network, offers all these secure signing solutions. If you run your own node, don't keep your private key there, especially not when it's in the early stages. There might be security bugs. So just beware. No problem, Devan. Please keep the questions coming. And so That's phase 0. So phase 0 is a move to proof of stake. Now, there are not going to be a lot of improvements on the user or developer side along with phase 0. Phase 0 is a massive change in the infrastructure, and it's a huge computer science achievement. But practically for a user of the Ethereum network or for a Solidity developer, it's not going to change much. So that's good in a way. Your applications keep running. The network is still there. You don't have to change anything. You don't have to transfer your wallet to upgrade your whatever. No, everything is still there. So that's already an achievement in itself, and I'm sure we'll be able to celebrate it when the network goes live. However, things like number of transactions per second are not going to change significantly. There is a question from Pongsabut about Boom, right? About the minimum time that you need to lock up when you do staking. Can you take it back anytime? So I'm not too familiar with the details. I think if I remember, when you stake, your Ether must be staked for if I remember, or like a certain number of blocks. I'm not sure how long that is. Maybe like a few days, in the order of days. Maybe somebody knows the actual answer there. But yeah, as Fox mentions, the issue is that you must deposit your Ether1 into a deposit contract, and you can't take it back. So you can stop staking, but the Ether remains on ETH2. And so, that creates risk. If there is anything going wrong with the ETH2 chain, you can get in trouble there. But yeah, that's why I think the rewards are going to be interesting. And with staking pools also, it means that you will be able to stake small amounts and just experiment and get some practice with this system. If you want to stake alone, I think the requirement is still going to be 32 ETH, right?
32 ETH, yeah.
Today, that's about 4,000 or 5,000 USD. So yeah, significant amount if you want to invest alone. So my recommendation would be experiment with staking pool if you want to learn about it, maybe before running your own node and staking your own ETH. So that's the phase 0 really in a nutshell. So it's still the same EVM, it's still the same Web3, your applications are still there, your tokens are still there, everything still works, hopefully. And then there's going to be phase 1. So phase 1 is when it starts to really get interesting in terms of scalability with the introduction of something called shards. So what is a shard? And then we're going to take the questions from Fox and Devan. Just what is a shard? It's basically one of the ways the network wants to deal with scalability is to split the network into a lot of mini networks. So instead of having one big Ethereum network that has becomes some kind of bottleneck, you split the problems into many different networks. In a way, it's similar to the way we see many private chains running today on Ethereum practically. But there, the difference is that all those networks are public. So, yeah, just take the questions from Fox and Devan, Max.
I will just read the questions for everybody, and it's an interesting one. How professional is ETH 2.0 development, the testing, the code coverage, and Fox is worried that there might be some bug killing the ETH network, and what would you think about it?
Yeah, it's a valid concern. From the beginning, one of the objectives of the ETH2 team has been multi-client. So from the beginning, they wanted to make sure that multiple Ethereum 2 clients were being developed for the reasons that you mentioned. There can be bugs, there can be issues. And so I think there's a few clients, maybe 3, if I remember, that are actively developed, that match the specs and that are going to go live. And so what this means is that's how they are trying to mitigate this risk. So they are trying to have 3 clients that comply with the specs. And then, of course, there is formal testing and verification of those clients against the spec. And I'm sure security and performance testing, although I'm not familiar with the details of those. The thing I've been following is Prismatics Lab. I think that's the one who was developing one of the clients. Maybe I can share this. If you guys are curious about the development of Ethereum 2, they're quite active in sharing their weekly updates of Ethereum 2 developments. Probably that's the one here on Medium. Sorry if I can open the right link. Nothing is working today.
So I just share as well on the chat actually an article about the roadmap of Ethereum. It's actually done by Vitalik Buterin. So we are confident that it's good information, and he's laying out the roadmap. There is no date, but this is the vision of what they are building on Ethereum at the moment.
And so, yeah, for this question on ETH2 development, basically, as far as I know, multiple teams that all must comply with the same specs, and that have their own, I think, testing, security, and performance testing process. Sorry, folks, I can't share much more answer than this, but I hope this addresses some of your concern.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a question from Devan.
Yeah, with ETH1, you can run a parity guess node in full archive mode. Capturing trace level data is desired. How does it change from ETH2?
Right. So yeah, great question. So there's going to be some changes to the level of clients that can run for ETH2. And basically, there's going to introduce different versions of light clients, which means that you will be able to run a node with basically smaller hardware, and your node won't have to keep the whole history of the blockchain. Not familiar with all the details, but I think you might find some information, for example, in the description of the phase 1 and the different protocols that will be used for client syncing. How is it going to change in ETH2? I think most of the change will be coming at the phase 1 level when shards get introduced. I'm not sure there's going to be any change on phase 0. But we'll try and confirm that with the team and share more information with you guys. Yeah. Sorry again, we didn't really expect to do an ETH2 presentation.
And by the way, I have your contacts, and I believe that when Robert is going to wake up today, he prepared actually a presentation for ETHEREUM and for enterprise. I will send it to all of you guys after maybe later tomorrow morning. And again, we really apologize for that. Next time I will try to make it a bit later for friends in the West Coast to be able to wake up earlier, and we'll share as much as information as he has, and in order for you to and if you have any questions, you can reach out to us. We generally make some meetups and others with developers. You can meet with our team, and we will try to reply to all your questions again.
Yeah, and just to finish on ETH2, so phase 2 then, from my understanding, is really when we get to the full Ethereum 2 vision, when we have different shards, so basically increased output of the network, and when those shards then are able to communicate, and when you can have contracts that interact between shards. I think that's, if I got it, that's the main difference between the phase 1 and phase 2 on the Ethereum 2. Now, frankly, the timeline for phase 1 and phase 2 is not set in stone at the moment. What the team is focused on is this move to phase 0, this change to proof of stake, and the setup of the beacon chain, which is really going to be the key architecture enabling a move to sharding later on. So a really great achievement on the computer science level, development, a great move forward for Ethereum. Which we're going to benefit from as developers and users in phase 1 and phase 2.
And regarding the concern on security about the development, I mean, the launch of this phase 0 has actually been pushed, I would say, many times because they are doing and overdoing testing to make sure that everything is all right. People are a bit disappointed because there is always the joke that it's never going to come, but actually it's a good thing. Because they are making sure that everything will be perfect for the phase 0. When you launch a project of this scale, you cannot basically allow any bugs. So yeah, it's a good sign that it has been delayed, but we expect to have it in the coming weeks or maybe next month. All right, guys. Again, we really apologize for the situation tonight. We'll try to share all this information from Robert. Next time, our next meetup will be for blockchain and IoT, and with some speakers from Taiwan and Thailand and Germany. And yeah, again, we will.
While we're there, for anybody who is interested, who wants to talk about ETH2, maybe what we can do is maybe we can unmute people. If you want to share your screen, we can just have some discussion together on Ethereum 2. We apologize that our presenter was unable to come. I see Bharat is asking about the session recording. So we post everything on YouTube. As Maxime said, we'll drop an email to everyone who joined today.
There is our previous meetup as well with ConsenSys, with MetaMask, with Pegasus team, Infura. If you guys want to see the presentation of those great people.
We'll share the link to the recording and Robert's presentation as soon as we get it.
As soon as he wakes up today.
And anybody who wants to talk about ETH2, let us know, and maybe in a couple of minutes we just unmute everybody and we can just have some discussion together. I think the latest news on ETH2 really is the launch of this multi-client testnet. I think this is Fox who was asking, like, how do we make sure that the clients are working, basically. So one of the ways we ensure that is by running a testnet for a long period of time with multiple clients. I think Boom has shared the link to Beacon Etherscan. Maybe that's this actual testnet. Practically, in the phase 1, your application still works. Like if you want to deploy something to Ethereum version 2, phase 0, sorry, not phase 1, phase 0, but when the phase 0 comes out, as a developer, as a user, nothing changes. Your MetaMask is still there, you can still connect, you can still deploy applications using Web3, things still work in the same way. And then this testnet basically is for proving that the clients adhere to the specifications of the Beacon chain, that proof of stake is operating as it should, that the validator concept and then the deposit contracts are working as they should. And as far as I know, it's been successful since the team then has moved on to making plans to take Ethereum 2 into production.
And again, if you want to talk about it, and I would be more than happy to share any information that we have. Teresa, thanks a lot for co-hosting on this one, and sorry again for failing you.
I think it's okay. I think we can unmute everyone if they are willing to share something. Right?
Okay. And so guys, I will share the presentation from Robert. And hopefully you will join the next one. It's the first time it happened to us, and hopefully the last. And sorry again for that today. Okay, so thanks again for joining. Really appreciate it. And
I'm just going to share a link in the Slack with this multi-client testnet. If anybody's curious, take a look at it. So I think it's called Alto now. And so that's going to be the latest Ethereum multi-client testnet. And so what are the clients that are going to be tested there? We'll figure it out and share with you. But thank you very much for joining. We apologize that things went a little bit away from the plan today. And thanks a lot for sharing all the questions. And we're going to stay there on the chat. So anybody who wants to talk to us, we're going to unmute everybody in a couple of minutes, and let's just have some discussion.
Okay.
I have a question. So other than getting the reward from the stacking mechanism, will ETH 2.0 affect like you guys enterprise blockchain solutions? And no, not at all. Okay. So
not in this phase, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Phase 0 is really going to be a massive improvement for the public network. As a public network user for some of our projects, we're happy that it's moving to proof of stake. We know that we are not burning kilowatt hours for securing the network now, so that's quite nice. As a developer, though, it's not bringing new functionality or major changes. Thank you, Kunpisut.
Thank you for the support.
To see you to the next event as well. But it's really on phase 1 and phase 2 when sharding gets introduced. That for us as developers, we'll get a new tool to use in our projects where we can create private blockchains that have basically a better speed, that can process better transactions. Although with the Ethereum 1 in private network setups, we can already get a pretty much the performance we want. By tweaking things like the block time and the block size, we can pretty much do the number of transactions that we want today. So really the improvement is going to be in access to mainnet. I think there was an interesting talk from Joe Lubin, always interesting when he talks, regarding his vision for Ethereum on the future. And one of the things he sees as a use for the Ethereum mainnet is like the chain to connect other chains. You know, imagine a future where you have 10,000 blockchains, and then you have this kind of public, trustless, highly secure network. That's kind of the vision for Ethereum 2. And then people now are building this kind of links between private chains and public networks. People in Thailand, for example, are building like Loom and Omise have been working on our technologies. With the idea that you do things in your private chain, you control the speed, you control the cost, you control everything. And you can still find smart ways to secure it using the public Ethereum network. And in a future where we might have 10,000, 100,000, 1 million of those blockchains, your public network still has to scale also. And so that's really the long-term vision for Ethereum 2. So, you know, in the future, when there is like a Thai baht that's digital in Thailand, for example, you might be working on the chain of the Bank of Thailand or the chain of your Kasikorn Bank, SCB, whoever, when you're using your phone and you're making payments at a restaurant. And then the bank or you, when you make a big transaction, might choose to do that transaction via the mainnet because you want better security, because the participant is not connected to the K-Bank chain. And so it would link basically different networks, kind of like the internet today links different computer networks. Like if you're working for a corporation, you have your own corporation network, and when you want to exchange info with another, you go over the public internet. So that's kind of the vision for Ethereum 2. And so Jay is asking the link to talk. So it was at the keynote of the latest DEF CON in Osaka. I think it's the ending speech.
Yeah, it was on Thursday.
So it's the ending speech on the DEF CON Osaka. Really super interesting. I think DEF CON shared everything on YouTube, if I remember.
ConsenSys did. I just send you the link.
So yeah, we'll send the link on the chat. If you have 15-20 minutes, it's really great. What I took from his talk is so this vision of Ethereum as an anchor, as a gateway between different blockchain networks, number one. And number two is his vision for how dApps are going to interact with one another. I think it's been really interesting. By the way, we might want to unmute everybody. I don't know if we can.
I don't know.
Anyway, so his vision for how dApps are going to talk with one another. So we've seen DeFi, you know, we've seen basically Maker being built, and then some guy saying, hey, I'm going to build Compound, and then other people like Kulap saying, hey, I'm going to build something on top of it. And so you have all this kind of Lego that are being built and that work with one another. It's not going to work with 15 transactions per second on the long term. So also Ethereum 2 is one way to provide more capacity for basically the DeFi space and other applications that will be built on top of it. And the composability of the Ethereum network is really one of its strengths. Just the fact that anybody can connect to Maker, build their own app on top of it, has alone given rise to the $600 million business on lending on Compound, which is really great to see. And the composability in the future, in Joe's vision, is something that's going to extend beyond DeFi to other spaces, and you might imagine it in Joseph Lubin's vision in the future, that composability will extend to supply chain, import-export, trade finance, commodities exchange, other areas of business where people might choose to use building blocks like the USD stablecoin of Maker, and then might choose to use the smart contract of the Custom Authority of Thailand, for example. Maybe in 5 or 10 years we'll get to that point. And Ethereum 2 will enable those new scaling scenarios for the Ethereum public network. So yeah, I think Max just shared the link. If you have time, read through his speech or go through the video as you prefer from Joe Lubin back in October last year. really great.
It should have been on the first day after Vitalik's speech, I believe, and not on the second. But just one question from Matt. How and will gas fees change with the move to ETH 2.0?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Matt. My short answer is I don't know. My long answer is with increased capacity, there should be a reduction in gas fees, assuming that the network usage remains the same. If we have the same number of transactions, more capacity, gas price should be lower. Is it going to be the same number of transactions? I think in phase 0, probably, because the network doesn't change fundamentally. Then in phase 1, when we get charged, we're going to start seeing some changes there. So you might have one shard, for example, that is very used. For example, there could be a shard where you have the contract of maker. It's likely that this shard is going to be busy. And then there might be another shard where there are not many people using it. And I'm not sure how gas is going to work in that scenario, but we might see different gas prices between shards. I expect that that's how the system would work. And folks also sharing about some other ways to scale the network. So like ZK rollup, side channels. So I think recently we've seen announcements from Scale. I think Scale may be part of ConsenSys or funded by ConsenSys.
Yeah,
there is some
they are investor.
And also very interesting Starkware. With zero knowledge rollups also. So those company approach to scalability is basically we built our own network. Doesn't even really have to be Ethereum if we want. And then we regularly post proof on mainnet that a certain number of things have happened in our network. It's a bit different concept from Plasma. I'm not familiar with it enough to explain it, but there are two kind of approaches. Rollups, you do a certain number of things, you post it on the public network, and then Plasma, you do your thing in your own corner, and if you get in trouble, you call the public network. So kind of different approaches, one where you regularly update the mainnet, and another one when you do it only when something goes wrong. And so this means that if you do your transaction on one of those networks that is operating on the side of the mainnet, in some cases there are no gas fees. I think when Loom started their network, for example, I think at that time there was no gas fees on their private net. Maybe there is some today, I'm not sure. There are other approaches like POA, for example, also running their own network. And then practically, if you want to run your private chain on Kaleido or using Pegasus Plus from ConsenSys, you can just set your own private network with no gas, no fees, and everybody can just start to use it without setting up a wallet first, which is, from a user perspective, a massive improvement. So that's why we're seeing in enterprise a lot of use on like Pegasus Plus, Hyperledger Besu, for example.
Okay, thanks, Guillaume, and thanks for sharing. If you have one or more, we can take one or two more questions if you guys have. Again, on the presentation from Robert, we will send it to you. And we'd like to say that the next meetup, there will be blockchain and IoT. So it's going to be, there's a lot of talks about those two technology combined. And we are going to have two great presenters. So again, one more questions, and then after, I think we can go. If there is
so I have one question, if I can.
Sure.
Cool. Can you guys hear me well?
Yes, very well.
Yes, cool. So at the moment, we have other blockchains that are gaining popularity, like Cardano, Ziliqua, Tezos. Do you agree with me that if Ethereum 2.0 is successful and we're going to have huge scalability, then all the other blockchains won't be able to gain any mass adoption with users and enterprise, and only Ethereum will stay? Or do you believe that there's still a lot of place for competitors?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I wish I had a crystal ball, but my personal opinion is that today blockchain is made kind of niche applications. When you really think about it, Ethereum took kind of the finance niche, and it's been very successful both on the enterprise side and then on the public side with DeFi. I'm sure that there are many other niches that will be filled by technologies which today have improvements over Ethereum. For example, you've seen a niche being filled on supply chain, VeChain. Not sure exactly what's the angle of Cardano or some other projects like Tezos, but assuming that they find an angle and a niche and that the technology matches that niche requirement, I'm sure there's potential on the short term. On the long term, though, I think that the vision where there is a public trustless network which serves as a gateway to exchange information across blockchains, across the world, I think that my personal opinion is that this is inevitable, is that we'll get to that point, that we need this trustless open network that everyone can connect to, just like you don't worry about which internet you connect to today on your phone. You don't even think about it. And in my opinion, the momentum, the scale of the Ethereum ecosystem has put it past the tipping point where it's kind of sure that it's going to take this role on the long term, in my opinion. Now, computer science and science in general is a strange thing, and there can be an improvement and a breakthrough tomorrow that breaks everything that I just said. But I think that in the coming year, we're going to see Ethereum's position strengthen, as even if a computer science breakthrough comes up, it's going to be years before it goes to a software that everyone uses.
And just to add what Guillaume is saying is that what we look at Atato on other blockchains, we look at the numbers of developers. And at Ethereum, there is no comparison. I think the goal from Joe Lubin was to reach for 1 million developers at the end of 2020. And when you have this kind of scale, it's difficult for other blockchain to be able to compete.
Right. And with everybody working from home and learning to code, I'm sure we'll get there. What do you think, Fox? Like, what was your take on that? Where do you see blockchains going?
First of all, a question. You said that other blockchains are successful in the supply chain. Which blockchain do you mean? I hope you don't mean private hyperledger stuff.
No, but there is some blockchain like VeChain, which actually specialized in supply chain. This is most of their enterprise applications are for supply chain, and this is kind of the niche that Guillaume was mentioning. I'm not really familiar as well of what are the advantages compared to using Ethereum.
But there are some other blockchains, that are filling niche, like Art Recorder, for example, also filling niche on the enterprise blockchain, especially in the banking industry. I still believe that the generalized open solution is the one that's going to see massive adoption, because as a developer, I'm not going to learn one chain for a project and then another chain for another project because I want to make a good use of my time. And so I still believe that Ethereum's approach is going to win on the long term. But yeah, like Max is saying, there are some niches that today are filled by specific chains.
So I love your comment. I've never heard a comment like this before. It's new for me. Like, we should have one blockchain and we have one internet, obviously. And this should be Ethereum. But the community would, if I would say something like this, the community would kill me. They would say it stops innovation and stuff like this.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's there are valid arguments. It creates risks. What if Ethereum goes down and that's the main chain? What if it's not secure? What I think, though, is that what matters in the end is the momentum, the number of people working on it. When you look at like the number of people that are developing Ethereum 2 and writing the specs, there are maybe 10 or 100 people that have the capability intellectually, the experience, the skills, the contacts to get involved in those sort of projects. And those are really hard computer science problems. And I think that having the big community and lots of very smart people working on those problems is going to give a huge advantage to Ethereum. And when we see people today that are starting blockchains from scratch, it's a massive effort. It's a huge project that has taken years to some of the smartest people in the world working on it at Ethereum. And so I'm not saying that there are not very smart people working on other blockchains, but just that the scale of the Ethereum network, in my opinion, is going to make it success.
And
very likely.
One thing that we see just compared to adoptions, when there is the new graduate looking to actually code on Solidity or blockchain, they are looking at the blockchain with the most developers. So all those new graduates which are joining today are most likely going to develop on Ethereum because of the software base and about the community, developers community. So it's only going to go up in time. So that's why we believe that this is going to be the #1 chain. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you very much. No more comments from me. Thank you very much. Very interesting.
Thank you very much for joining. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for all the questions for the meetup. And if anybody wants to add something on this, jump on this, I'm not sure if everybody's unmuted or not, but feel free to jump in the chat and we'll unmute you. And as soon as we get this presentation on ETH2, we'll share with everybody. I think we have the emails of everybody.
We'll share it from all that one.
See you guys.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Sorry about
again. Sorry. Thank you, Teresa, for making it. And
thanks,
next time we will make sure that the host is here.
Sorry, it's good to catch up. Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Good night. Bye.